Our understanding of the universe is built upon a foundation of unshakable laws. The conservation of mass and energy, the predictable dance of gravity, the elegant mathematics of orbital mechanics. These are the pillars of physics, the code that governs our three-dimensional reality. For centuries, this code has proven to be flawlessly consistent. We can predict the motion of a planet 1,000 years from now. We can calculate the mass of a distant star. We can land a probe on a moving comet.
In the history books.
Our physics works. But what happens when an object appears that seems to defy that code? What happens when we witness a glitch in the matrix of reality? This is the fundamental problem of FreeI/Atlas. When we apply our trusted, time-tested 3D physics to this interstellar visitor, the system crashes. The numbers don't add up. First, there is the problem of its origin and appearance. It entered our awareness from a direction in space with no obvious parent star, a cosmic orphan. More than that, its detection felt abrupt, as if it simply faded into existence within the range of our telescopes. Second, there is the problem of its mass and energy. The object's brightness fluctuated in ways that were not perfectly correlated with its distance from the Sun or its outgassing activity. Its estimated mass, as we've explored, was a source of immense debate, almost as if its physical presence was unstable and shifting. Third, and most perplexingly, there is the problem of its fragmentation. It did not break apart like a cohesive, solid object under uniform stress. It shattered into distinct clusters in a way that defied our models of structural integrity, almost as if different parts of the object ceased to exist in unison. When faced with such a cascade of inconsistencies, science has two paths. The first is to assume our data is wrong or incomplete, and that a conventional, 3D explanation still exists, hidden in the noise. The second is to entertain a far more radical and terrifying possibility, that the problem is not with our data, but with our physics. That we are trying to apply the rules of a three-dimensional game to a player from a four-dimensional world. FreeI/Atlas is not just an anomaly, it is a system-wide error message, a piece of evidence that suggests the reality we perceive is terrifyingly incomplete. To comprehend the sheer alienness of this theory, we must first perform an exercise in imagination. We must step outside of our own dimensional reality. Let us consider the classic thought experiment known as Flatland, a hypothetical universe that exists only in two dimensions, length and width. To the beings living on this flat plane, the universe is a sheet of paper. They have no concept of up or down. Now, imagine a three-dimensional object, a simple sphere, passing through their 2D world. What would the Flatlanders observe? They would not see a sphere. They would see a single point magically appear from nothing. This point would then expand into a circle. The circle would grow to a maximum size as the sphere's equator passed through their plane, and then it would begin to shrink, finally contracting back into a single point before vanishing into nothingness. From their perspective, this event would be an absolute violation of their known physics. An object appeared without a source, changed its size in defiance of the conservation of mass, and then disappeared without a trace. Their greatest scientists would be baffled, proposing theories of strange energy fields or localized miracles. But the explanation is simple. They were witnessing a mere slice, a cross-section, of a higher dimensional reality. Now, we must take this analogy and apply it to ourselves. We live in a 3D world. What would we see if a four-dimensional object, a hypersphere or a tesseract, passed through our three-dimensional space? The logic is identical. We would not see the complete 4D object. We would only perceive the 3D slice of it that was currently intersecting our reality. We would witness an object appear, seemingly from nowhere. We would see its 3D properties, like its size, mass, and even its topology, its very shape and connectivity, change in ways that violate our most fundamental physical laws. It could appear to grow or shrink, split into multiple pieces, and then vanish. We would be the Flatlanders, staring at a miracle and trying to explain it with our limited, 3D understanding, completely blind to the true, higher-dimensional nature of the event unfolding around us. With this powerful, mind-bending analogy in hand, let us return to the cosmic crime scene of 3I/Atlas and re-examine every piece of evidence through this new, four-dimensional lens. Suddenly, the glitches and inconsistencies are no longer problems to be solved, they are the exact phenomena we would expect to see. First, consider its impossible origin. The theory posits that 3I/Atlas did not travel to our solar system in the conventional sense. It simply began to intersect our 3D reality at that point in spacetime. Its trail doesn't lead back to a parent star in our dimension because its home is not in our dimension. It is a traveler on a four-dimensional path, and our solar system was just a brief, three-dimensional waypoint on its incomprehensible journey. Next, consider its unstable physical properties, the wild fluctuations in brightness and the conflicting mass estimates. This is the 4D hypothesis's most elegant explanation. We were not witnessing a single object with changing properties, we were witnessing a changing cross-section of a stable, hyperdimensional object. As more or less of its 4D bulk passed through our 3D slice of reality, its perceived 3D mass and size would appear to fluctuate wildly, violating the conservation of mass from our limited perspective. The object itself wasn't changing, our view of it was. Finally, and most compellingly, there is the fragmentation. This was not a 3D object breaking apart. This was a single, contiguous 4D object whose complex shape, as it passed through our reality, presented a cross-section that appeared as multiple, disconnected pieces. Imagine passing your 5 fingers through the 2D plane of Flatland. A Flatlander would not see a hand. They would see 5 separate circles appearing and disappearing independently. They would assume they were witnessing 5 separate objects. We, looking at the fragments of 3I/Atlas, could be making the exact same mistake. The ordered chaos, the prime-numbered clusters, the impossible alignments, these may not be a message, but the natural, geometric shadow of a complex hyperobject we cannot comprehend. If we dare to accept this theory as a possibility, we are immediately confronted with the next logical question: what is it? If this visitor was not a comet, but the 3D shadow of a 4D phenomenon, what was its true nature? The speculation here takes us to the absolute edge of science and into the realm of profound philosophical horror. The first possibility is that it was a machine, a hyperdimensional vehicle. Beings that exist in 4 spatial dimensions would perceive our universe in a way we cannot imagine. They would see our past, present, and future laid out like a landscape. To them, our 3D space might be a convenient shortcut, a lower dimensional membrane they can fit into to travel vast distances in their own realm. 3I/Atlas was the wake of their passage, the momentary intersection of their vessel with our world, an event as trivial to them as a ship's keel cutting through the water is to us. We were not visited, we were merely in the way. The second possibility is even more alien. It could be a creature, a life form. We assume life must be 3D because we are. But a 4D ecosystem could exist, with its own biology, its own evolution, its own colossal leviathans that swim through the bulk of spacetime. 3I/Atlas could have been the equivalent of a cosmic whale breaching the surface of our reality for a moment before plunging back into the unseen depths. Its apparent fragmentation was not a technological act, but the shadow of its incomprehensible anatomy. Its motives would be unknowable, its existence a terrifying reminder that life might be a far grander and stranger concept than we have ever imagined. The third possibility is perhaps the most terrifying. It was not a ship or a creature, but simply a natural event. A hyperstorm, or a 4D river of cosmic energy, a normal feature of a higher dimensional reality that just happened to intersect with our own. In this case, there is no intelligence, no motive, no life. There is only a blind, chaotic, and unimaginably powerful universe to which we are utterly vulnerable. We would be like a colony of ants living on a log in a river, completely unaware of the water, the currents, or the waterfall that lies just ahead. The event was not hostile, it was simply indifferent, a terrifying glimpse of the true, violent scale of the cosmos we inhabit. The theory of free I/Atlas as a four-dimensional object is, without question, one of the most extreme and speculative ideas to emerge from modern astronomy. It is a hypothesis that currently sits far outside the bounds of testable, mainstream science.
Mission liftoff from Space Shuttle Discovery,
And yet, its
taking the
power
space
lies
station
in
to
its
full power
terrifying
for full.
elegance. It is a single, unifying explanation for a whole host of otherwise disconnected and baffling anomalies. It leaves no stone unturned. The implications of this theory, were it ever to be proven true, would represent the single greatest and most humbling paradigm shift in the history of human thought, far surpassing the revelations of Copernicus or Darwin. It would mean that the universe we can see, every star, every galaxy, every particle, is nothing more than a thin, fragile membrane, a shadow play on the wall of a much larger, and completely invisible, reality. It means we are the Flatlanders. We are fundamentally blind to the true scope and majesty of the cosmos. More than that, it means we are terrifyingly vulnerable. A 4D being or object could perceive and interact with us in ways we could never anticipate or defend against. It could reach into a locked room without opening the door. It could see inside our bodies without cutting our skin. It could remove our planet from existence with a movement in a direction we cannot even point to. The darkness of the universe, this theory suggests, is not the empty space between the stars.
Main gear touchdown.
It is the infinite number of dimensions that surround us at every moment, completely beyond our perception. Free I/Atlas is a moment. It is a momentary crack in the wall of our perception, a brief glimpse of the sheer scale of the reality we are a part of. We have now returned to our comfortable, 3D existence, but the knowledge of that crack remains. We are left with the chilling, unshakable realization that we may not just be alone in the universe, we may be living inside a ghost story, haunted by a cosmos that we can never truly see.